software development agile methodologies, the X-Scrum agile method, and the X-Scrum elements and tools promoting self-organized teams, and the conclusion and future work. The X-Scrum here is the method, the agile method that has been proposed by the authors. The agile methods in the field of software engineering has emerged since a decade ago to solve many problems related to software project management. And the Agile Manifesto that has came to existence in 2001 has a say, we have come to value individuals and interactions over processes and tools. So here they indicate the value of human resource in the software development teams. One of the principles of the 12 principles included in this Agile Manifesto is build projects around motivated individuals. Software development methodologies that overload the developers by many documentation procedures. So the Agile methodologies that has been emerged came to overcome the problems that existing with the traditional software development methodologies. Some of the well-known agile methodologies in software development are the Scrum and Extreme Programming, well known as XP. The X-Scrum agile method proposed here try to apply most of the principles of the Agile Manifesto. The X-Scrum principles are apply the Scrum approach as a project management. As we can see, the methodology proposed here in this article, it's blending the Scrum approach and the XP approach. It's using the Scrum approach as a project management methodology and applying the principles provided by the XP, the Extreme Programming approach, to guide the development process, and uses the object-oriented approach to develop the software solutions. Project management, as we mentioned in the previous slide, it relies on the Scrum methodology, agile methodology. It has the skeleton that is sprint or iteration, in which the software code is generated or encoded, and usually it lasts from 1 to 4 weeks. The Scrum and XP roles are almost similar. So the roles of XP or the roles of X-Scrum, each of which can be used in the proposed methodology. The artifact of Scrum are used in this methodology, and the meetings of Scrum, as we will see later, there are 3 types of meeting will be used in this methodology. The development team in the X-Scrum, the proposed methodology, assume the basic activities developed from the XP. As we can see here, for the project management, the methodology is using the Scrum methodology, and for the development is using the principles provided by the XP Agile methodology. Apply the Scrum approach as a project management, apply the XP approach to guide the software development process, and use the object-oriented approach to build the solution. Here, the development, it has listed 4 activities: encode, test, listen, and design. Encode for code writing, testing, and listening to discuss and understand the problems. Design is related to design of the software solution. X-Scrum elements and tool roles. Here, the roles in the proposed methodology are divided to business and development, where business refers to the client, who set the requirement for the software, and the development refers to the development team who generate the codes. Iterations, it lasts from 1 to 4 weeks, and at the end of each iteration, the deliverable will be a tested working software code. The artifacts are user stories, system stories, iteration stories, and processes. Meetings, preparation meetings with the client or the business, and the daily meetings between the software development teams, and the iteration review meetings will be at the end, the time of delivering the solution. The tools, agile project management tools, the methodology recommend the use of Konaji methodology, as it supports all the activities included in the Scrum, the skeleton of this proposed methodology. Besides, it allows room for incorporating other principles from other agile methodologies. Modeling tools can be used such as STAR UML tool for developing diagrams, UML diagrams. Promoting the self-organized team. This is the core issue or the core contribution of this article, how to promote the self-organized team as the best architecture requirement and design emerge from self-organizing teams. The Scrum mechanism that help the formation of self-organized team are the following. This is how this proposed methodology will motivate the self-organized team. First, well-defined and complementary roles, the business and development. Like I said, the business refers to the client and the development refers to the development team. The participation in meeting, as the development team will be involved in the preparation meetings with the client to identify the requirements and set the deadlines for delivery. Besides the daily meeting between the team members to discuss the problems and any obstacles that might hinder the delivery of the project at the stated dates, and team members might help each other to overcome the problems. And this is for the daily meeting, and the participation in meeting with business responsible. The development team participate twice with the project owner. The first, when defining the requirements, and at the end of the project, just to make sure what has been developed is meeting the requirement of the client or the customer. To conclude, the article presents the main mechanisms included in the proposal that are the key in the promotion of self-organized team. Scrum can be beneficial in those projects where you want to apply agile principles with an object-oriented approach.
The paper will be about quality of service monitoring of wireless networks based on combined active passive measurement tools. As we know that computer networks and multimedia applications are playing a major role in our daily life. So, in order to be able to deal with these applications and to monitor our networks and measure their performance, there should be some tools in order to assess or infer the quality of service that is provided by these networks. This paper is designed in order to provide some tools or techniques in order to monitor and measure the quality of service of multimedia networks transmitted over wireless ad hoc networks. As we know, the performance of computer networks or communication network is of vital importance for the service providers and for the users, and this network performance should be in a way or in a manner that satisfies the user needs. So, in addition, the measurement tools should be fast, should be simple, and should be accurate. We mean by this that the gathered information from the network should be performed in a fast way, and the measurement to use should be simple, and the result of measurement should be accurate. In general, there are many ways, many techniques that are used in order to infer or to assess the quality of service or the performance of network. These can be classified into different categories. For example, direct and indirect, active and passive, subjective or objectives. All of these techniques have their own advantages and disadvantages. In this paper, we will talk about active and passive measurements. By passive measurements, we mean that to measure the performance of the network by observing the traffic that transfer over a specific point in the network, like for example, a router or a switch or an endpoint host. The advantage of this network that it doesn't perturb the network performance or doesn't affect the network performance like other measurement techniques, but it gathers a lot of information, huge information, and this information, in order to process this information, takes a lot of time to get the result. The active measurement, on the other hand, it's based on injecting the network by artificial probing packets, and depending on the performance of these packets, the measurements is based. For example, to measure the delay, it's the latency, or to measure the jitter, or some other quality of service parameter, it's based on active probing packets. The disadvantage of this measurement technique, it disturbs the network because we are injecting additional load to the network, and it's not good to inject or to overload and to overwhelm the network with additional traffic load. But this is in order to get some specific measurements about the network. The probing packet should be light in order not to perturb the network and take and consume the resources of the network as it will be seen. Therefore, a technique in order to combine the advantages of the passive measurement and the active measurement in order to get a tool that is suitable for measuring the performance of the network. In this paper, we considered the quality of service requirements for video conferencing multimedia application, and we based on active and passive measurement in order to infer the performance of the network. Both delay and jitter quality of service parameter were measured by active measurement, and the losses and throughput were measured by the passive measurement. So we measured the quality of service parameter by two ways, active and passive. The experiment is based on injecting the traffic by monitoring packet, and we selected the probe packet rate depending on the traffic packet rate. So we should select the probe packet rate as small as possible, as I said, in order not to perturb the network performance. So we injected the network by several monitoring packets depending on the number of M packets of the user traffic. For example, we used 25 probe packets, and they are inserting periodically in between the user traffic. The combination of this, the active is used to generate the monitoring probe packets, which are inserted between the blocks of the target application, multimedia application. The active measurement is used to estimate the actual user delay and actual user jitter with delay variation. The passive measurement was used in order to measure the losses and the throughput of the user traffic. The combination of these methods is utilized in order to infer the quality of service in total. So, in order to summarize, the active measurement and passive measurement used to measure the quality of service parameter of multimedia application transmitted over a computer network. Then these parameters, in order to get the overall quality of service for the multimedia application, because all the measurement tools used to measure either delay or jitter or packet loss or throughput individually. In this way, these parameters are gathered with each other in order to give a unified value for the quality of service provided by the network for a given application. These parameters are fed, the delay, jitter, and losses are fed to a fuzzy logic system based on inference fuzzy logic system. I don't know if you are familiar with the AI, artificial intelligence system. These parameters are fed to a fuzzy logic system. This fuzzy logic system designed by me and has been published by several papers lastly. After measuring these parameters, the fuzzy system is used to assess the user application quality of service. An S2 simulator was used to simulate the ad hoc network. The nodes of the network were arranged in a random position ad hoc in an area of 250 multiplied by 250 meters square. The network used 6 pairs of fixed sort destinations. One of the pair is used for video conferencing transmission, and the other were used for cross traffic information. The network traffic characteristics, video conferencing, the packet size is 512 bytes with generation rate 384, and the others are the background traffic in order to create different traffic rates over the network. The monitoring packet, which is the probe packets, were CBR constant bit rate packets transmitted using the user datagram protocol with packet size 64 bytes, which means the packet size of the probe packet, which used for active measurement, should be as small as possible. The size of the traffic in between two probe packets selected differently: 375, 186, 93, 47, 31, and 25 packets. By this, the ratio between the probe packet and the traffic, the user traffic, as one probe packet per 375 traffics. The other experiment, one probe packet for 186 user traffic, and one probe packet for 93 user traffic, and the other has been performed. The result we got, as I said, for these parameters: one-way delay, delay variation, jitter, packet loss ratio, throughput, and overall assessed quality of service is monitored and measured. In this paper also, we want to measure the effectiveness of this approach and the effect of the addition, the artificial traffic on the network performance, and how much the accuracy that can be provided by this probing packet techniques. This figure represents the quality of service, the overall quality of service provided by the network for figure A, for the actual traffic without any probing packet, without any artificial active measurements packet. B is the assessed quality of service by the active measurement probing packet using a 25 packet, using one probe packet every 25 traffic packets or user traffic. C is The same, the overall quality of service measured for one probe packet is transmitted every 375 user traffic. You can see the details that the active measurement can provide. As much as probing packet you have in the network, you can get more details about the performance of the network. If the monitoring packets are small, you can get an estimation of the quality of service. In order to measure the statistics of the measured quality of service, we measured the evaluated quality of service without any probing packets. It was in average 52.74, and the evaluated quality of service using the active measurement and the combined active and passive measurement was 40.94 M اللي هو يعني user traffic numbers 40.9 for M186, 40.5 for M93, 42 for M74, 43, and for M25, 44. The absolute error, the difference between the actual, which is without probing the network, without affecting the network, the difference between the measurements is, for example, 11.8 when using one single probe packet for 375 user traffic. 12, you can see as M get lower, the difference get, or the absolute error lower also. So this, the details of the quality of service measure depends on, and the accuracy, the preciseness of the measure of the quality of service depends on how many probe packets do you have in the network. Because you are depending on these probing packets in order to measure the quality of service parameter. The quality of service standard deviation, it was 37.09 for the actual traffic. For the active and passive measurement tool, 38, it's no difference between. The maximum quality of service is 90 and the minimum was 9. This figure represents the overall quality of service represented as a bar chart. The quality of service classified as poor, average, and good quality of service. 3 classes, depending on the resulted values. For example, from 0 to 33, it was considered as poor. From 34 to 67, it was considered as average. And from 67 till 100, it was considered as good. This represents the classification of the quality of service based on the probing packet rate. For example, the first one is for the probing packet using 375 packets. B for 25 packets, and C is the actual. You can see that the actual is comparable with the B because the number of packets of the probing packet. This also represents statistic of the overall quality of service as classified as poor, average, and good, with the given mean and standard deviation. This represents the cumulative probability distribution function for the measured quality of service in order to get some information about the probability to have, for example, quality of service less than given a threshold. For example, if you are asked, for example, to give how much or what's the probability that the network can provide quality of service less than 50% or 70% or 30%. From this, you can project 30%, for example. You can get that it's 55% the probability to get values for this, and you can this given for the actual traffic and for the M25 and 75. This figure represents the periods of the measured quality of service. This means how long the quality of service was good, how long was it average, how long was it in good, and this given for the 2 different probing rate. This also measures the biasness, which means the effect of addition of the probing packet in the network. You can see that the measured quality of service for the actual traffic, it was 52.7. and they measured for when adding the probing packet, when it is very low, the number of probing packet, it was nearly the same. But when you increase the probing packet, it starts to decrease. They measure the quality service because the effect of the probing packet, because probing packet takes some of the resources of the network that are provided for the user. The absolute error, you can see that it goes bigger and bigger when increasing the probing packet rate. The quality service standard deviation measure the maximum quality service and the minimum quality service. Actually, this way or this method provides some insight about the performance of the network and the ability of the network in order to satisfy the user requirements for a given quality of service. As I said, the measuring tools were active, for example, or passive. This is a combination between two in order to get specific measurements about the network performance and the quality of service provided to the network, to the user application. Thank you very much. The thing you mentioned, it depends on the protocol used. If you use TCP or UDP or using Internet protocols, it depends on the overhead added to the packet. But as you said, that if it is disseminated into 3 different parts, the problem is when one of these parts is lost, as Professor that the process of recombination of these packets is not possible. So this packet will be dropped, will be considered as dropped packet. So it will not be considered because you measure the loss ratio. So if the information which is contained in this packet, most of it is lost, so it's considered as lost packet.
Assalamu alaikum and good afternoon. Before all of us, I would like to thank ICITEE 2019 to give me this a chance to stand here and present my paper. And I would never forget to thank my beloved university to giving me good knowledge and support to be able to doing a research paper. So the research paper is about scientific research online management system. Before starting, I think if the research is not important, then we will never be here today, right? So the conference assigned the research where the people comes from everywhere and they try to share their opinions, their outcome, finding experience, challenges, to tell us about the effort that they are faced while they are trying to solve a problem. So if I want to define the research in a simple way, what's the meaning of a research? I think all of you here able to know what is the research. So the people are come with the a problem and trying to clarify the problem and solve this problem. So there is many types of the research. There is quantitative, qualitative, theoretical, and technical, and many types of the research. And this research it come out with a research paper as a journal, as a book, chapter of book, and so on. Now, before starting talk, I will tell you what is the mission of this research paper, actually. I will, and the motivations, but let me say what is the impact of the research. We all know that the research is important in many different areas and also play a massive role in industry, but the focuses today will be in the academic life. So we all know that research is important in academic promotion, in full accreditations, and also in excellent reputation. And also, if the staff want to apply for a promotions, there is a preconditions. And the first preconditions, that, not the first, but one of the most important preconditions they are asked about it is the research. If there is no publication that published by this staff, then the promotion will not be accepted. So what I am trying to say here is to divide a new system and develop a new system. This system will be able to control and comprehend the publications such as the paper, journal, and thesis. So the main motivations of the project is scientific research play a vital role in academic institution, as I mentioned, for full accreditation, excellent reputations, and ranking. Now, ASU play a good effort and trying to take care and attentions about the research. And when you're looking for the strategics of the Applied Science University, after the teaching, there is one important goal, which is a research, which develop a research culture and deliver high-quality research output. Now, in 2018, ASU listed in a ranking of a QS among the Arab region university. And if you're looking for the rank is 45, but notice about the research output. You can find that the research output is low. Now, if I'm moving to 2019, I can notice that the university is jumped from 45 to 37. But what we are noticed that still there is a low level in research paper. So what I'm trying to do trying to see it from behind this paper is to apply and develop system that has the ability to improving the research. And so if the Deanship of Scientific Research and Graduation Studies have a full report about the publication, then he will be able to know where is the weaknesses and the strongness and which stuff, which program, which department has become with a high level of publication and try to support them. So as I mentioned, the main objective for this research is to make a system able to reflect a complete vision about the scientific research. Now, the scope of the proposed system is, for now, it's Applied Science University, and I'm very happy and I would like to thank my university to accepting this research as a project. So after, inshallah, done from this presentation and take for your valuable comments, we will, inshallah, starting for working and the future work will be applying the system. Now, for sure, the strategic and proposed methods is depending on data collections. We collection the data and we're trying to see what is the current system and analyze the current system and find the weaknesses and also study similar systems. Yeah, of course, there is another system that has a system about publication, but when you go deeply about it, you will find that there is a limitations for each website. For example, advanced filtering and static research, static diagrams to showing the level of the research and publication. We conducted a questionnaires and interview. I interviewed the Deanship of Scientific Research and Graduation Studies to take his ideas and his idea about what will be in the new system, and also take the opinions of the staff by doing a questionnaires to know what they are expected from the new system. Series the theoretical background, it's a literature review, and then as I mentioned about the questionnaires and the interview. There is a link for interview. If you want me show it to you, I will show it after the presentation. And the data collections, and as I mentioned, there is limitations of the multiple websites. And I said for the new system, the details about each publication, and you will be able to upload and download document, searching, generate report. That report is very important to know the level of the publication or how can you support it. And also you will be able to online submitting. I will not going deeply for this use case, but this use case showing how they interact between the user and the system. And here is the database and the relationship between each entity. And there is the architecture of the system starting from the home and listed by the other pages. And for sure, there is two parts of the system, will be client side and server side. And the contributions of this study provides the ability to use its funding to expand the capabilities of academic research and improve them. Beside the abilities to access and evaluate the research ratio of each program, department, and staff. So at the end, I can say that the importance of the research is very noticeable. So we have to take care and consideration about it. And I think this system will be a play role to improve and provide the ranking and reputations and excellent promotion. If there is any questions, I will be most welcome. Thank you. Actually, I did it in individual groups because when you're looking for the requirements, I'm not looking for existing system. I'm looking for new requirements that's developing. That's why I needing to do individuals meeting. And the questionnaires because I want really to take many opinions of this stuff. So for sure, I will not make interview for each of one. That's why.
Bismillah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. My presentation or my paper, which is empirical study in image denoising using total variation and based on color space. This is the content, which will be introduction, images with the references, without references, framework, methodology, color space, RGB, and other color spaces. And we have, by the end, findings and experiment and conclusion. Actually, the image processing, as we know, all of us, it is important for a lot of areas or a lot of fields around in the research or also in our lives. Images, in the computer vision, it's working on the images. Also, the methods and the algorithms that working on the images, it's very important to present or to give us a good images. Also those images, they have noise, they have some distortion by any of the like denoising or noising or withers, whatever. Also, we need these algorithms to extract good features to study or to understand the image itself. Actually, in this paper, we're talking about also how to denoising the images through the color spaces. We select two color spaces. Beside the RGB, we have YCP and CR. This is color spaces. As you see here, I didn't write a lot of words actually in this presentation. I will share with the images. That's better. We see here those two images. The first one, it is noisy by rail streaks. Also the other one, it's a clean images. The first one, as you see, a lot of rail streaks that cover a lot of important details and information in the images. Also the other one, it's clear, it's a clean image. That's what I mean in the first, in the content or in the titles. We have some images, we have a reference. That means we have a clean image from these images. But in the real world, this case is not going to be repeated a lot because some of the images cannot be, we don't have the reference for these images. We have another here. Another example, we have here, look for rainstrix. I selected rainstrix because I did this work before, so also it's important to share you our experience in this field. But this paper and this idea, it's new to use a color space to be here or to nosing through the color spaces. Also, you see here how much this rainstrix that cover a lot of details and a real information in the picture or an image. Also here another one. This is from, we can see this one everywhere. You can take pictures, we can take images, but it's important to denoise these rainstrix from the images. Those images, it's individual, because some images without any references. That means we don't have the clean image from these pictures. We have only the rainy images. We have another here also. We see here, this is a black umbrella. We have see this rainstrix that coming to be this umbrella it's like white or some of parts of the images. Here this is the night images. Actually here, this is the main idea, the problem statement here, how we can remove this rainstrix from the images with accuracy, with time, with no time consuming, with no remove any details from the images. Those are very important or trade-offs for the rainstrix denoising or reconstructions. Actually, a lot of algorithms, they can make filters or they can do some filters for the images, but they cannot remove any noising from the images. We select here total variation, which is the very good algorithm to do or to work through the image. It's working in two parts, in the structure and the texture itself. Not working on the any details. It's working on a structure, texture and structure inside the images. Our framework here input the rainy image, compare this rainy image from RGB to P to CMY, its color space, and CY, CP, and CR color spaces. Then using total variation, then compare this color spaces to RGB, then represent or product a clean image. Why we use this RGB? Because total variation, it's not working with the other color spaces. It's working on the RGB. Also, the statistical methods, what we used, as we see before, this statistical methods or measurement, it's working in the RGB, like visual information validity, mean squared error, and peak signal to ratio, which is BSNR. This is the CMY. This is in the color space, here in the CMY color space. Also here the second image. We use the most images or the most images that showed in the other papers and the articles. Also this is the other color space, Y, CP, CR. Also the other one. Here we have the statistical result after we used also the MATLAB to perform this algorithm, which is total variation. We see the MSE in the first color space, it's coming to be better. This one, these values will be lower, it's better than the high. That means the first one, YCP-CR, it's better than CMY in the total using total variation. Also the PSNR, this one is better than CMY. VIF in the CMY, it's better than the YCP-CR. The other one, the other measurement, this is for the other figure. We see here also the CMI, it's better in the three measurements, in MSE, in PSNR, in VD, in VIF. We present the values in this graph, this MCE. We see here also CMY, it's higher than, but YCP-CR, it's better than, because it's lower. Because MCE, it's working when he to be lower, it's better. Also PSNR, when he lower, it's coming. When he higher, it's better than. Also still YCP-CR, it's better. In the last one, we know that CMY it's coming to be better than CYCP. The conclusion for this article is going to be using total variation. When are working, if you are to select to work in the other color space, other RGB, we prefer, or according to the result, that you can use YCPCR is better than CMY, according to the statistical result, according to the graphs as we showed. And this is the other rainy images with total variation. This our method here, total variation. Look for this rain streaks. This is a clean by images. We see some details actually are removed from the images, but the main features or the main objects in the image is still available, like the colors, the rows. Also here, look for these details in this image. Still we have here some same details. Here also another picture according to the techniques. We removed the most real streaks from the image, but we can see the main object actually it is still the same. But you can see the other, the trees, the background, it's going to be like not exactly the details coming. This is from the challenges you can work in the future for the other if you are used the. But actually, this is total variation. It is the best method you can use to remove those rain streaks from the images. You can see a lot of noise here in this picture. It's not easy to use other methods. Here also the other picture. Also the other challenge. Look for some rain streaks still not removed. Still not removed. Also, but the main object is still it's available and clean. So, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Any questions?
Okay. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm sorry for it's okay. I can shout. Sorry for the interruption. Finally, we found the presentation. Today, I will talk about the cloud computing, and we'll talk about only one part of the cloud computing, which is, I believe, it's a very important part, which is the implementation of the cloud ERP system. As you know, it's now we are living the age of cloud computing, age of digital technology, age of big data, and we have to cope with the with the innovation, with the technology. In this presentation, I'll try to highlight the main critical success factors and the challenges that organizations face before or while they are moving to the cloud computing. In brief, cloud computing, like a public utility that what you use, you have to pay for. I like the example of electric company that if you use, right, you pay for what the amount that you used. You do not really bring the generator to your house and generate the electricity. Of course, you will be connected to electric company and you pay only for what you use. Now, there are three important parts of the cloud computing. Number one, the providers of the cloud computing, they provide software as a service, we call it SaaS, and infrastructure as a service, we call it IaaS, and platform as a service, which they call it PaaS. Now, most of the organizations, they move to the platform as a service or the infrastructure as a service. But very few of the organizations, very few of the business companies used the software as a service. So the ERP implementation will be part of the software as a service. We have two types of implementation, ERP in-house implementation and cloud-based ERP implementation. Now, definitely, ERP cloud implementation became a very important move, a very important technology where companies, they have to move to the cloud services, as what they did in the government sector in Bahrain. They forced them to move to Amazon Hub, where they provide the infrastructure and the server as a service. Now, everyone believes that the cloud ERP, it became a solution to many companies, especially to the medium and small companies, SMEs, where you have to, they don't need to pay a lot to cope or to buy the ERP system with its infrastructure. In this research paper, what I did, I tried my best to identify, as I told you, the critical success factors and the challenges that faced by the organizations. Now, a study has been conducted in educational sector where 30% of them, they cope, they adapt and they cope with the cloud ERP system to replace the legacy system, 21% to improve the customer service, and 16% to transfer to an institutional operation, 12% to make the campus, modern campus, all right? 7% keep the institute competitive, 5% to increase the efficiency, also 5% for better teaching and learning, and another 4% to regulate the compliance. Now, the top 10 critical success, the top 10 challenges started by security, and you know that the security became a very important challenge to the cloud computing. Cost, governance, compliance, competencies, vendor dominance, integration, customization, migration, and organizational data. These are the challenges that companies face when they decide to move to the cloud computing. Now, as I told you, there are two types of implementation, in-house and cloud-based. Now, the in-house critical success factor means when companies decided to move to the not to the cloud computing, to the in-house cloud implementation, they have to look at this 10 critical success factors: top management support, project management, business process engineering, user involvement, business plan and vision, careful package selection, change readiness and culture, clear goals and objectives, learning competencies, and minimal customization. By the way, there are plenty of critical success factors in-house ERP implementation, but I identified only 10 critical success factors. Now, on the other hand, there are also critical success factors on a cloud ERP system, not very similar to the in-house ERP critical success factors. Number one, compatibility, that your organization, the technology that you have in the organization must be compatible with the technology of the provider. Advantage to management support, again, in the cloud implementation. Security also a critical success factor. Technology readiness, you have to be ready before you move to the cloud ERP system. Complexity, competitive pressure, governance, regulation, and support, teamwork, and composition, and finally, the firm size. The firm size, for some providers, it really matters. But I did a research review on ERP, and I found that the ERP critical success factor is a very important part of ERP research. Now, what I'm proposing here, I'm proposing a framework, and I have listed 10 critical success factors before moving to the cloud-based ERP system, which are the top management support. And what I did, I tried to get some from the in-house critical success factor and the cloud-based ERP critical success factors, and I come up with this framework. Number one, I believe that the top management support is a very important critical success factor in both in-house and cloud ERP implementation. User involvement, the users, they have to be involved from the beginning of the implementation until the end. I believe that the critical success factors, they have. I believe that the users, they have to be involved from the pre-implementation until the post-implementation. Security also, readiness, we have to be ready before we move to the cloud ERP implementation. Project management, vendor support is a very important critical success factor. If you select the right vendor, I believe you will end up with a very successful project. All right? Compatibility as well, business process reengineering. And you have to keep in mind before moving to the cloud ERP implementation that you do not make so many customization, all right? And when you select, you have to select the right provider and the right package before you move to the ERP cloud-based implementation. These are the references. Thank you. If you have any questions, you are most welcome.
Assalamu alaikum. Good evening, everybody. I will introduce a new method of word spotting for machine printed Arabic text documents. My agenda or outline will be introduction, then I will talk about the background that will include motivation and problem statement, related work. I will talk a little bit about challenges in Arabic word spotting because we all know that Arabic language is more difficult than Latin languages as English and French. Then I will move to talk about my proposed method, then about the results and analysis, and finally my conclusions and the future work. And as we all know, today there is a huge evolution of ICT. So we have many quantities of scanned and digitally available document, and many of the people try to scan the printed document as an image and put it in the PDF file. So we cannot search these documents because they will be reserved an image. So content searching strategies are not relevant to searching for keywords through these image documents. They will be image document, not text document as Word to search. So how to solve this problem? One of the approaches is the OCR, optical character recognition system, are considered main data searching system based. But for this approach, you have to convert the text image into text document. Then after that, you can search for a certain keyword. If we use this approach, if OCR applied to text images, these images need to be converted to text document, then we can search. But this will result in two main problems. The first one, long time, because this time will be resulted from the converting of the image to the text. The second one, that we need a high quality scanned image so as to make it easy for us to translate or to move the image to text. So there are two main problems if we want to use the OCR. So what are the alternatives? The alternative to minimize these issues, researchers have suggested another methodology named keyword spotting. Keyword spotting means finding all instant of a query word that exists in a scanned. This is a scanned document. This is an image. We want to search the word al-ma'lumat. We want to search the al-ma'lumat inside this image. Finding all instant of query words that exist in a scanned document image without fully recognize this image using OCR. This is our main contribution in this work. So this approach enables a variety of OCR-based applications to extend their operation to image documents, such as this will help us in spam detection from the image, because there may be some words that are spam inside the image. And this will be used also as assistive technology for the blind. Okay, many literature can be found in the subject of word spotting. But unfortunately, most or majority of these articles are written for English, for Latin letters, for Latin, English, Spanish, French, contours. There are only few papers dealing with word spotting in Arabic, but most of them also for Arabic handwriting. All of these are for Arabic handwriting, not for printed. Why do researchers avoid printed? Why they avoid printed? Because of this difficulty or challenge. Accuracy of Arabic OCR themes were affected by font type. Because in Arabic we have multi-font, Diwani, Ruq'a, Naskha, and many of them may overlay, one word may overlay another word. So there are many fonts in Arabic were affected by font type. The low precision rate for all assist schemes was the Diwani letter font. I will show you inshallah, due to faced the nature of this font which involve overlap. This is an article for Sulaimani in 2010. These are the Arabic, the well-known Arabic font, 10 well-known Arabic fonts on the web. See, for example, the first one is Andalus. This is the Andalus. And this is the second one, Arabic transparent. The third one, adverse. This is the Diwani, the most difficult font for Arabic. See how this font, some words are overlay another, and so it is a texture, not contours. So this is the main problem of some of Arabic fonts. And we have also, these are the 10 well-known fonts on the web. So due to the spatial changes of printed Arabic, so many of the researchers avoid to deal with printed Arabic due to the spatial change of printed Arabic document image. In this study, we employ a local feature-based searching method, features that we search a lot for in the domain of image processing, to search for a filter that deal with scale and rotation invariant. So we find lastly the speed up robust feature, SERF feature. SERF, it is a filter from the image, and it is firstly developed in 2008. It is chosen due to its invariant characteristics of rotation and scale invariation. This filter, this image processing filter, will fit the nature of Arabic, because this filter, this image processing filter, would deal with the scale invariant and rotation invariant. The two main problems of Arabic, rotation and the scale invariant. And this filter exactly deals with these problems. This is the overview of the proposed problem or the proposed method. This is the image, text image. I'm sorry for the quality, but because minimizing the scale for the image. This is the image. Then this image will goes into text line. I will discover the text line and the words and extract the words from the image. Then I will extract the SERF features from each word and reserve these features on the database. So after the feature extraction by SERF, I will reserve all of the features inside the database and call this stage as indexing stage. For the query stage, I will ask, using MATLAB, I will ask the user to provide me the word that I want to search for. So this is a text keyword. So I will print al-ma'lumat. Then a program will convert the al-ma'lumat as a text, as an image, and then extract the features from this image. Then I will search for that feature in the database features and return with the exact features that near to the features of the given query image. So it is an image search. It is an image search. I will extract word images from the, and this is very, very difficult stage because I will face many problems here. These problems regarding the Arabic font overlaying, or sometimes we face the problem of multi-size. So this will affect the segmentation phase. So after the segmentation, I will extract the features and store the features in the database. For the query stage, I will ask the user for a certain word, then I will extract the feature from that word and compare the feature of the query word with the stored database, and extract the words in the given image. This is as an abstract overview of the method. I will now show you the feature extraction phase here: text, image, pre-processing, segmentation, feature extraction, classifier, and evaluation. For feature extraction, I will use fetch surf features and make a clusterization to select the strongest feature for that word, the strongest feature using k-means algorithm. Then I will formulate a code book to extract the visual word histogram for the selected word image. So this will talk about the indexing stage, as we said, first by pre-processing, then segmentation, extracting the feature using surf, then building the code book using the k-means clustering. And for the query stage, we will also follow the same methodology. Then we compare that image with the features that are stored on the database. See, for this research work, I try to work on this most difficult document image that I will find, because this image contains 10 different fonts with multi-scale or multi-size font. So this is the very difficult image I found on the web. And I try to segment using MATLAB to segment this image, and you see how the Diwani is the most difficult one between them, because it will affect the segmentation phase. Diwani will affect the segmentation phase. For the proposed system, I evaluate the result. I use the published database called ALF Regime. It is published on by Sulaimani on the web, and I use the formula which is precision, which is equal the number of relevant image retrieved divided by the total number of image retrieved. This is I used the 10-page dataset, and I obtained 82% accuracy of the extracted image, and I will show you some of these results. And also this study shows the link between the accuracy of word splitting technique and Arabic document font and segmentation accuracy. This paper or this study proves or shows the relationship between the accuracy and the font of the Arabic font used, and the segmentation result in the segmentation phase. This is, for example, I ask my application or the research to search for Arabiya from that document. This is Arabiya. You see Arabiya and the Diwani. It is the most. This is from the first line, second Arabiya. All of the fonts. I succeed to extract all the words for different fonts, but just this is Arabiya and small. For example, for bayanat, this is wrong, al-bahth. Then bayanat, kalimat, it is because it is very near to bayanat. This is the most al-bahth for different. So this is all of the extracted word from that page. See, this is the main problem. So my conclusion is, in this paper we have presented a method for spotting words from machine printed Arabic text document based on SERF, a new image processing filter called SERF. And the efficiency of the proposed method is shown experimentally on 10 different Arabic fonts and different font size. It's worth mentioning here that if I use same font, multi papers with the same font, same size, the accuracy will raise up to over 90. So I choose to work on different fonts, different sizes to make it as hard as possible to try my work. As demonstrated by the result of experiment, we can conclude that SERF visual words can produce promising performance of spotting the desired image with the added advantage of scalability and fast indexing instead of first moving the image into OCR then searching. So it will be very promising result. What are our future work? Our future work will include, we will try to improve the segmentation stage, because the segmentation stage for Diwani and Thuluth affect our result, and then evaluate the proposed system for handwritten Arabic document and compare our method to the other researchers. So thank you all.
Thank you, Professor Ayman, for the...
You mean use AI for classification stage? For classification. I try AI to, instead of support vector machine, I tried the neural network, backward and forward, different styles. But the support vector machine is the best one for this problem, really. I try many of these AI algorithms because AI will be used as a classification, as learning, not in the extraction phase. For extraction phase, I try many of the image processing filters to adapt and be fit to my problem. I found SERF because there are SIFT, SERF, Gaber, HOG, many of the image processing filter. But the one that fits to my study is SERF. For classification phase, when I compare the query image with the database, I also tried many of them, but the best fit one is the support vector machine. Yes, you are right. Yes, this is why it comes from the segmentation, because here I show you the most difficult image that I have that contained. But usually over the web you have, if you search for a certain document, you will find that document in one font, in one size. For example, you may find it contain 2 fonts or 2 sizes. But my work was on the hardest one that contained 10 different fonts with different scales.
Assalamu alaikum. I could see an audience from different disciplines. For that reason, I will try to keep the presentation simple and interesting as well. The presentation will be about real-time website security. Nowadays, we could not imagine if there is any company or organization that don't have a website. And the website design and the website content need huge efforts and money and, let's say, hard work to give the right image about the owner of the website. Traditionally, to protect websites, web servers use a physical layer of security, such as firewalls. But this solution is expensive and difficult to apply and need upgrade periodically. Many websites use difficult techniques to verify human user from boots, okay? But at the same time, these solutions have a different level of security that make, let's say, the browsing the website inconvenient for the visitors and make as impairment to use the website features. And this is again the aim of having a website, because any company, any organization that have a website wants a large number of visitors. The problem statement. The importance of website takes to spend money, as we said, time and efforts to improve it by enhancing the content and also the design. So we must save these efforts and protect the website that could be attacked by an opener that affect the level of the business by destroying the website, copy the content, or even stealing the design. Website content stealing is becoming nowadays a very serious problem for information and e-commerce websites. The practice known as a web phishing or web scraping that the stealer use bot simulates as a human web user to extract the desired content of the victim's website. The stealer uses content normally without mentioning, of course, the owner, or use the same design without mention who made the work and who designed the website. So the solution is a real-time website security. As a concept, real-time website security system is a treatment of an abnormal use, directly detect any unwanted action on the website as stealing design files, images, directly, or make too many unjustified requests for a database in the website. These abnormal actions affect the website performance, bother other normal users, and even sometimes it will lead to denial of service. Completely, we will have denial of service. So real-time website security, compare the request action and decide the level of secure, which must face the user depending on his habit in browsing. If the user or the visitor acts as a normal human, then he or she can browsing everything in the website. It will browse the full design, the full images, the full resources in the website. But if the visitor is act unnormal, so the main important resource in the website, it will be blocked for him. Real-time website security uses a session which stores information in variables and use it across multiple pages, and is separate to every user and stored and compare on the server side. Also, it cannot be accessed by the user, him or herself. But over this competition, the interesting thing about the real-time web security, there is no complexity and there is no extra, real extra charge of implementing this solution. Even the performance of the website will remain the same. The normal user will not get disturbed. And at the same time, this solution is perfect for saving the website content and sensitive data from stalling without needing any extra cost and install new specific features or hardware for the website. The proposed solution will use the real-time website security as adapted solution to protect the website from unsafe visiting, that use copier tools and try to extract the design or affected the resources. So the proposed solution will depend on the user behavior. If the user behavior is normal, he will browse the website in the original design and with the full resources. If the visitor behave abnormal, so we will block the main resource and content and let him browse the website with limited resources. And even we will disable any unwanted connection to sensitive data, for example, prices tables. The target real-time, the suggested real-time website security is protected and is, let's say, suitable for a small business website and web services that use a cloud hosting. And we know cloud hosting usually it costs money and have limited hardware security options, even if we need to pay more to get extra security. It is easy to implement this solution. It works dynamically and compare the current user speed with the security threshold of majority to decide if the security is normal user or suspicious user. And according to that, we will use the suitable security plan with the visitor. So what we have, or how the solution is implemented, when we have a new visitor, first we will receive the request from the new visitor, and we will create a new counter information belong to him or to her on a server session. And it is simple for us to create a unique identifier for the visitor and connected with the request counter and the duration time. After that, we will calculate the visitor used speed. Here, every new request from identifier visitor will calculate accumulated his or her speed and compare it with the security threshold. If the requested speed still acts as a normal speed, it means a normal access to everything on the website, as we said before. But if the speed exceeded the threshold, then the real-time website security system take them to a secure browsing mode, a different website design with the limited resources and with limited connections. This means he or she will see a different design, access to a different databases, and see a specific range of images. Here we have the new visitor, a new session counter, and this is the speed. If the speed is normal, so the user will browse the website in a normal way. If the speed is not normal, so the website he will use or she will use the website in a secure way and notify the system administrator, and after that, compute the new speed. This new value of visitor speed add to accumulate values of all website visitor statistics, which act as the main factor to calculate the threshold. A threshold calculated by the following threshold equation in the next slide. It calculated after 10 requests from a new visitor that did not exceed the darkness adopted previously. We obtained a general impression of the speed of browsing and the normal period of use the site, and did not break the level of safety on it. This is the equation. T equals C plus S plus U multiply summation from K to N, Vn divided by N. T is the threshold value, C is the website content value, and S is the website web server speed, and U is the user effect ratio, and N is the number of the total visit for the user, and the VK is user K browsing speed. As experimental result, before I explain the specification and when we implemented, the idea is simple. We calculate the threshold and see the behavior of the visitor. If the visitor is normal, he will use the website with the full features, and if the threshold was exceeded, so the user or the visitor will use the website in limited features. The computing of the threshold after 10 normal requests keep threshold value dynamically changed, depend on the website hosting server speed, the value and size of website content, and the most important attribute is the browsing speed of the website clients. So these are the factors in our equation. All real-time website security systems were written in PHP, server-side language, and the tests were performed on Intel Core i5, a processor with a clock speed of 2.5 gigahertz and with 8 gigabyte of RAM as a local offline server. And another time test on GoDaddy domain hosting. On the local server, it gives a good result in all cases. On the high-speed server, it did not lead its purpose on website that contains less than 60 files, and with the total size less than 1 megabyte. So it will work better on the huge website. Also, it acts when we use real-time web security system, a threshold equation on actual website that at normal status contain more than 100 files with total size more than 1 megabyte. It's prevent copying the website by stealing website tools and stop the overuse of requests, the content of the website, and sensitive query on the database. The best result was when we applied the solution on a huge site, which includes thousands of images with total size of 1.5 gigabyte. And this happened without affecting the performance of the server and even without disrupting the visitor browsing requests. So the conclusion, real-time website security system is adaptive system that give a solution to prevent stealing website contents. It's designed to depend on the visitor behavior in browsing. And if the visitor browsing speed is normal, he or she will use the whole facilities of the website. And if the system see the visitor behave abnormally, so it will use a security level that prevent the important features of the website or the critical features of the website to prevent it from being used by the suspicious visitor. The future work, it's a good idea to add a new factor for the hardware, okay, related to the client side and make it as an important factor in the equation. And this the reference that we used in implementing the research. And thank you so much. And if you have any questions, my pleasure. It will take it as one of the indications, but we have
There's a reason I ask.
yes, we have a equation threshold and take the speed as a factor, but the speed is one of the most important factors. By the way, Professor Hilal, he is my supervisor in the BSc and MSc and PhD, okay? And he learned me security. Professor, this is the equation. What we recommend for the website that being hosting on the cloud, because usually the web servers have a physical, let's say, physical security. And for the businesses that, let's say, have limited resources, because this is a solution, but it's not the ideal solution, keep hiding features, to be honest with you, okay? So it's a suitable solution. The cost is almost nothing, but for the big organization, if they have their own web server, they could use different levels of security. They try, but usually boots use, when they target something, they use same pattern. I will give you an example. In the oldest ages, in the public chats of Yahoo, how we organize boots, they keep sending the, let's say they have 10 or let's say 100 questions or text. They keep sending the same text. So they have a kind of regular behavior. And this will give us an indication about them. For the others, there are different approaches. There are physical security, there is software security. For example, using internet security softwares, using physical securities, you could make a honey pot for the server to protect it, duplicate the website. But this solution, we said here, is suitable for small businesses. When I mention it, it's a solution for, let's say, companies that have not limited resources, but not huge companies, and who are using, let's say, cloud computing. They don't own their own servers and their other storage. So here,
Assalamu alaikum. Actually, I want to just say something before I start. I know as Doctor introduced the sessions now about financial innovations, but actually my paper is not linked much to financial innovations, because at the time Dr. Ghassan invited me, that's the paper I have, he said that's fine, send it. But the good thing about the conference here, I now link it after attending the session in the morning, and now I know how I can extend it actually, and include the financial innovation part. Especially I'm teaching, in my university, I'm teaching accounting information system, and I'm teaching data analytics and big data. So I'm familiar with this type of technology in the field of accounting and finance. And at the end of the paper, I will tell you what I benefit from coming here actually, what's the next step of my paper here. That paper actually talk about the culture here, and the culture can be measured by many attributes. Talk about here culture, and let's talk about what the component or the title about culture, about bank supervision and investor protection, especially at the time of financial crisis. A lot of research at the time of financial crisis look at what contribute to the financial crisis, and they start to look for some impacts, like less regulations and policies at the time, high debt by customers and organizations. It could be subprime mortgage. It could be other reason, like how mature is the capital market in that field, in that country. So, but we noticed none of the of these literature review or papers look for the culture impact. And in culture impact here, we're gonna emphasize in two culture attributes. One of them is linguistic distance, which means that the distance from English, countries who speak different language than English. What is that impact if you live in that countries? The second one for culture, we look for religiosity, which is religion. And the religion, we don't specify one type of religion. It is all religions, and because the data collected at the country level. So we have data from developed and developing countries around about 38 countries in the world, where are many different religions. Actually, if you think, none of the countries in our sample represent Arab country, Middle East, but we have Pakistan, India, for example, Malaysia, which are Muslim majority, but that sample actually not more than 7% of the whole population. So religion here means that all religions, not specific religion here. So what's our objectives here? To examine whether the two culture components we talk about, the two culture attributes, would be considered by investor when they assess the equity prices for the banks at the time of crisis. And the second objective, after we consider the supervision and investor protections, we also look for whether the level of supervision and the level of consumer protection nullify the equity prices consequence of these two culture attributes. As I started before, a lot of work, that's the motivation of our paper. We don't find like a lot of literature review talk about the culture as a component that contributes to the financial crisis. And we also, we are actually one of the first studies to empirically test what is called the equity pricing of the interactions between the two corporate governance actually components, which is supervision and investor protection, with the two culture attributes here. A lot of behavioral research right now, economics and finance, suggests that the psychological and sociological factors, they have impact in the stock price variations. The stock price goes up and down. It is actually impacted by this type of psychological and sociological factors. And they document kind of systematic association between societal norms and the bank performance. We extend that research by looking at the culture norms, as I specify before, for like whether the culture norms actually can explain the stock price variations for banks at the time of the crisis. When we build our hypothesis here, we're going to talk about some kind of arguments and counter arguments before we build our hypothesis. We're going to start with the linguistic here. For language, actually, language affects the culture. It's a community where people live in. So the language affects the way the people thinking, the pattern of thinking. Like if you consider, for example, Japanese and Spanish language, when you think about the second person, they have two ways of communicating with the second person. In English, we have one way. We said you, for example, but in Spanish and also Japanese and also in Arabic, actually, we don't say you. We say another words to see which reflects the relationship between you and the other person, which you show respect, for example. Like for example, you said, sir, you said طويل العمر, like in United Arab Emirates, and they say words in which that reflect the interpersonal relationship, which is that one is not actually in English. They have a direct kind of communications. They focus more on the economic circumstances more than the interpersonal relationship between the two persons. Besides, for example, if we talk about a bank manager when he's talking to the CEO of a company, actually he controls. In English, he cares about only the economic information. So the information between the two guys can reflect the economic information. Before I give loan, I need to just look at your company, whether actually your company can pay the loan on time or not. And they try to see the risk of not paying the loan before they make a decision. If you think about other companies like in Japan, in Spanish, they look for, beside the economic or the financial information, they look for the interpersonal information. And the bank manager will collect in a personal level some other non-financial information that help him in making a better decision. And there is a studies actually by West and Graham. They find out a positive actually relationship between linguistic distance from English and the quality of the decision they are making. Okay, so they find out there is a kind of relationship. In the other side, if you think about English, actually English is more focused on details. Like when they put a contract, they more focus on a lot of details and the small fonts in which they don't leave anything ambiguous here. And that's actually give more details for the decision maker in which can he depend on these details in making decisions relative to other languages. He said English is more kind of context independence. So there is no too many choices when you use a word. If you think about Japan, for example, it is most likely its context, what you call it here, dependence. So the word can means many meaning depending on the context where you use the word on. So kind of behavioral research in this area a lot. I remember there is a kind of experimental when they bring a picture and they ask like a guy from Japan to describe it and a guy from US to describe it. So US start to describe the object first by saying, for example, there is a big fish and there is a trout like passing by. When the same picture is given to a guy from Japan, he starts to look at the scene behind it. He said it starts with the lake. There is a lake surrounded by trees, and after that, you look under, like in the water, you see a fish. So he look at the big picture and go for like in depth for details after that. So the way of thinking, the pattern actually of thinking, it changed in these two, and that pattern of thinking affect what here the decision making and in the English-speaking and non-English-speaking So we actually, because of this counter-argument, we put our hypothesis in null hypothesis. We don't specify our directions. When you say there is no association between linguistic distance, which is this distance from English, and the bank share price in the period of what year of crisis. Second component of the culture we choose here is religiosity. Like, the religion affect the people ethics and behavior. People are thinking that if you are living more in communities which is affected by religions, you will be more ethics. Manager will not take opportunistic behavior or not follow their self-interest, and they choose a decision that actually save or help the minority and help the stockholders. So in this type of community, we expect that religion will have kind of impact on the ethics of the decision makers of the company. Will also help the the stakeholders of the bank. We look at the study around. We find that using a religion as a proxy for culture, value, and society, and they find a strong relationship between religious belief and firm firm performance and the economic growth in these companies. Also, when they look at the community where it is more affected by religions, they find that these communities are less subject to a kind of securities lawsuits, less opportunistic management behavior or earning management, and less option backdating and less unreasonable compensations. We put actually our hypothesis here in one direction is positive hypothesis that we expect a positive relationship between the religiosity and bank share prices in the period of financial crisis. And there is a lot of research actually look for, as I said here, we don't specify one religion, we look at all religions, because we look at the countries, the countries, most of the countries actually is dominating by Christianity or like China, there is no religions in most of the parts there. So there is a study actually look at for the financial crisis part, they also look for the conventional bank and Islamic bank and look the performance of conventional bank and Islamic bank at the time of crisis, and they find out the Islamic bank actually overperformed the non-Islamic, the conventional bank in the term of crisis. And the reason actually was because Islamic banks are risk averse. When they take a decision, they are kind of risk averse more, and also the banks in the Islamic banks actually usually involved in decisions. Because if you look at the product for Islamic bank, you'll find murabaha, mudaraba, in which bank will be a component. It's not I'm lending money to people and they use it, and after that I care about whether they pay on time or not. No, the bank actually involved in a lot of decisions, and that's why they try to be sure that the borrower are matures in terms of decision making here. After that, we look, for investor protection. In countries that they have a high level of investor protections, actually religion will play a minor role here because the laws gonna protect actually the minority shareholders, and and in this type of community or type of countries when investor protection is is taking care, we don't expect that linguistic actually or religion will make a difference here, because the laws and will take care of that situations here. So we suggest that when we have a strong investor protection is likely to mitigate the effect of culture attributes we mentioned, which is linguistic distance, and the other one, which is the religiosity. But we have a counter argument as well in this case, in which we find out if external investor if there is no much faith in investor protection, people actually in this community are likely to value the culture, attributes we talk about it here. So again, we have a kind of counter argument when we put our hypothesis in null hypothesis here, in which that investor protection does not impact pricing of linguistic and religiosity in financial crisis. What we mean by that, it doesn't add another component actually of the pricing over what so religion is not adding more than what investor protection is adding in this case. For supervision as well, we look at whether if there is like high supervision in the banks or less supervisions. When high supervision is most of the things under the control of the CAO of the bank, or the key directors of the bank, in which they leave little details from others to manage. So in this case, we find out, the literature actually are saying when we have a high supervision, actually, also the rule of religion, the rule of linguistics will not be much important of this company here, or these countries, I'm sorry. But in the other case, actually, how about if we have less supervision, actually? Less supervision, we find out if you have a less supervisions, usually the CEO, supervision could be also come from the community over the bank, or the board of directors over the bank managers here. So if the bank manager feel that they are not less supervised, they can take actions actually that help their friends, for example, to finance their political campaign and spend the resources of the bank in other things that actually do not actually contribute to the bank performance. So we have also a counter argument in this case. We put our hypothesis in a null hypothesis again, which is bank supervision does not impact the pricing of linguistic distance and religiosity in the financial crisis. Okay, Hofstede also put another 4 dimensions of cultures, because for culture we use 2 dimensions. We have other 2, which is power distance, individualism versus collectivism, masculinity versus femininity, and the uncertainty of it. So when we develop our actually model, we use these other 4 components in our fall model. We have we have two versions of model, okay, in which we look for the full culture attributes, and we look for the small model in which we look for the only culture attributes, which is we do not consider Hofstede here. Our sample is collected from 38 countries in the period from 2008 to 2012. We have 3,487 bank year observations. We run a regression analysis when we use what do you call it? The stock abnormal return actually as a dependent variable when we look, which is the difference between the raw return and the market return. And after that, as a dependent variables, we use the 2 cultures norms here, and also we use the other 4 Hofstede dimensions of cultures, and we control for other firm characteristic like size, marketable value, and we control also for the year effect and for industry effect as well. And we have our before the finding here, we have here our data like before the conference, I run it to see like what, first when I submit it, if you look at the proceeding, actually it doesn't have data. But the good thing about the conference, it helped me, okay, let's push it further to see the preliminary results. So if you see here, like we developed the sample in developed countries, and these are the developing countries and the emerging countries, as I said, in which is more dominated by United States is 20% of our sample from United States, followed by Japan, 15%. And we have also other countries, which is like, when you look at here for like kind of Muslim community is not actually too much. For Pakistan, it's only less than 1%. And for Malaysia is about 2%. So the sample is not dominated by certain religion here. Okay, it could be dominated actually by religion other than Islam here. I'm gonna go back here before I talk about the results here. I'm gonna go back to the finding here, but we develop our regression also in a way we separate the developed countries from developing countries and see whether results actually, stay the same or not. So if you go to the sample here, we find in the reduced model and full model. Reduced means that we don't consider the other four characteristic of cultures. And in full model, we consider the harvested four models here. We find the first one, there is actually a positive and significant coefficient between linguistic index, and that information are mostly available online for countries like linguistic index is available online, and in which we reject the hypothesis number one. But hypothesis number one, which is a null form, we expect no relationship. We put it in a null form, but actually we find a positive relationship between here linguistics, in how far it is from English, and what here and bank stock and the pricing of the bank equity as the terms of crisis here. Religiosity is positively and significantly embedded in stock prices also, which is supporting the second hypothesis also as we are expecting here. So which means that the investor values the management ethics actually for when they make decisions here. Also, when we look for the other component, which is supervision and investor protection. For investor protection, we don't find any relationship between investor protections and what here and the pricing of the bank equities. And which means that there is no much significant result in that case. But when we try to find out whether the stock protection can add value to the regression model, we add the coefficient of the investor protection to the coefficient of the interactions between the investor protection and linguistic and religion. But we find out actually these two variables, which is, the investor protection did not add, did not contribute over what here, or it could be other ways around. Also, it could be the linguistic and religion did not, contribute over what here the investor protections. Okay, in pricing the equity at the time of financial crisis. Supervision, we find a statistical positive effect, but also when we try to add the two components together, we don't also find a significant results here. We're still looking around here. We look for developed and developing countries. We find a little these countries are not behaving the same when we consider the supervision, for example, for the two banks. But for religion and linguistic distance, we find the act the same here. What I am thinking about as for future research right now is to look for the culture of organization. Organization culture means here we're gonna add the innovations. We can look for something like data analytics. You can look for information modeling. We can look for something like Internet of Things, to see whether the culture, that the innovative culture actually will impact, or the not will impact here. If we can look for two different, like for banks that fail and the banks actually did not fail at the time of crisis. But I know at the time of crisis, 2008, there is not much more innovation at that time. But for future, like, because right now with the innovations, we have a real-time data, like, with data analytics, so we call it the 4 V's, in which is volume, velocity, and variety, and in which the bank need a real-time information. And it's not like, other like the financial analysts. For example, if somebody is using the credit cards, I need to know, like in a spot, that credit card is used by what here unauthorized person, and I can stop it. Also, the bank can use data analytics techniques to anticipate the ability of a person to pay on time his debt. So with these data analytics techniques, we can look for the culture in which the culture of the environment, not of the banks, not the culture around the bank. Like whether the bank are using data analytics techniques, whether the bank are using, like, for example, like, Internet of Things, information modeling, actually, before they decide to give a loan or to decide to invest in whatever kind of investment here. So that's actually going to be the trend of my paper in the second round here. I think I'm going to stop here. No, that's thank you very much. Thank you. Actually, that's for the that's for the Hosfeld, like, the kind of when we look at the fall model. Yeah. They use power of for feminists, like, they look at in a way they are more cooperative, they are more kind of, they handle the, the conflict in more easy way than men, for example. They are, so they look for these kind of components. They build a kind of culture inside the organizations when communication will be easy, like, you don't have a kind of freedom to, not freedom, free of talk. You can talk to people without thinking about somebody gonna revenge at the end, or, come back to you. So they look for this type of environment is helping decision maker more than it is built by, like, the main attributes, which is kind of like, maybe decision centered the most of the time, and tough decision makers. More hostile. Yeah, exactly, more hostile, you're right. So they look at that component. It's a lot of research actually in this area, and that's why it's like, that's why we try to actually differentiate ourselves from the literature review. So we focus on the two things, but that's a good question in which the impact actually the culture. Okay, thank you. That's a good question actually. For behavioral type of research, like, you think like the psychological impact of like for language impact the pattern of the way they think. And the impact that, they actually have a kind of impact in the way you think, the way you make decisions, the way you look at details. And that's actually for banks at the time of crisis, make a big difference between, like, between the two guys who think differently. So because at the time of crisis, what happened in the US, for example, like in US before the crisis, people were giving loans left and right. Like, I was living in US at that period. You don't even look for your financial history. You said, come and take a loan. Like, and it was easy loans like that, because the market was good, the money was there. And, and if you think about the bank manager, the more loans he gave away, the higher his compensation at the time, So they were risk-taking more than others. And that risk-taking actually affected actually especially the real estate industry, because people take money to build homes, and after that they cannot pay the money back. And when the banks actually have the custody of homes, the stock price went down. So So the behavior research actually is talking a lot about the pattern of thinking, how the people think, and that how it is affected, like, you know, the financial decision making. It's not always like kind of materialistic, like, you know, component that can affect, like materialistic mean that the bank performance before, like, you know, is not only the bank performance or the bank side or the bank buffers that can what here impact what whether the bank will collapse or not.
Today I'm going to present an initial theoretical paper. It's going to be short, it's not very long. It's a joint paper by Dr. Hafnida, Dr. Iyad, Professor Noura, and myself. Islamic finance for SMEs, past, present, and future direction. This is an initial theoretical paper that we are starting as a series of research that we will do later on. So usually when you start doing a research in area, you start with a theoretical scanning of the area and then you go in deeper. So as the theme of this research, or this forum is about innovation and SMEs, our paper is focusing on SMEs as well and Islamic finance, how Islamic finance can be a source of funding for SMEs. So SMEs, small and medium enterprises, has been identified around the world, especially with some major researches and papers, as one of the major that changes that will take place in the world. So basically, in one of the most important and recent reports, we have making sense of world in motion. We have entrepreneurship as being, you know, the trend, shaping the trend for the future work of the world. SME is also recognized as an important factor for sustainable and economic growth. SMEs contribute to GDP by more than 42% and total employment of 49% globally around the world. Also, SMEs have a major gap in financing, especially by 50%. So there is a lack of financing for SMEs by 50%. That is one of the reasons that we wanted to look in this area and look into more research. Sorry. In the same time, Islamic banking assets have grew by 2.8 trillion in 2017. Mostly of this growth is coming from the Middle East and Far East Asia. Therefore, the objective is to identify past, present, future directions for Islamic finance. We used in this study a descriptive analysis. We look at secondary data from international published reports from the period 2002 until today. Since the financial crisis, 2008, SMEs have become an important area of research, more importantly, as to a source of employment around the world. Here we look at how SMEs contribute to GDP and employment. This is categorized by the level of income and different levels of income around the world. So we see mostly in between lower middle and upper medium class where we have more contribution towards unemployment or creating jobs. As we said in the early beginning, there is a lack of financing and there is a shortage of financing, especially from Islamic and conventional banks in general. This have resulted in a credit gap or financing gap of 1,297 billion US dollars globally. And we're talking about very huge credit gap where this is a potential going to be for many banks, whether conventional or Islamics. We looked more into analysis and data and research on the region. And of course, different countries here where we find, for example, in Egypt, there is a low offerings of finances for SMEs. And also, when it comes to Islamic finance, there's a very low, and the enabling environment in general is very low as well. And this goes all the way to other countries, for example, Saudi Arabia, and also where we have SMEs offerings very moderate. Islamic financing offerings are also very moderate, and enabling environment is very high. There are obstacles that's faced by SMEs in general in the region and around the world. Mainly the focus here is in the Middle East. And for example, as we see in Saudi Arabia, there is a shortage in information providers in general, weak organizational, operational, inefficient credit and risk assessment, lack of operational capabilities, and so on. And these are mostly common in all countries. We have here the challenges that is facing Islamic finance. Basically 5 main challenges: product offerings, information sharing, transaction costs and taxes, movable collateral, and human resources. We will keep this human resources part to the end because we will have a recommendation on that. So here we have opportunities for Islamic finance in general, as Islamic finance have a different types or schemes of financing. We have asset-based financing and equity-based financing, where the asset can be murabaha, ijara, and salam. The equity is musharaka and diminishing musharaka and mudaraba as well. All of these modes of financing or different options of financing can be customized and modified to fit for the Islamic banking in general. Why we say that there is a potential for Islamic banks and Islamic finance? There is a preference over or for Sharia compliance in the region in general, especially when it comes, for example, for a country like in Saudi Arabia or Egypt, Pakistan, and Jordan as well. So here we look at comparison between the level of financing for SMEs and the preference for Sharia financing. So if we look at the differences there, that is the gap that Islamic banks can fit in and fill in the gap for credit needs for SMEs. Where is the potential and how much the credit gap is over the region? طبعا here we have countries with the low potential, countries with medium potential, and countries with high potential, including the credit gaps. One of the highest potential countries is Saudi Arabia, with a very high credit gap of almost 1 billion. And then comes Pakistan and Egypt, all the way to the least gap in Iraq. So we would like to conclude here by some conclusions and recommendations. First of all, for Islamic banks to be supportive for SMEs and to create a new financing modes, a supportive entrepreneurial ecosystem must be put in place. This ecosystem should include 5 factors. First of all, regulatory environment, supportive regulatory environment. Second of all, educational system supporting entrepreneurial mindset. And when we talk about educations, we talk about especially higher education here. And then coordinated approach linking public, private, and voluntary sector. Also, entrepreneur culture and access to funding as being one of the most important obstacles facing facing small enterprises around the world. Islamic banks should put in place a strategy framework to provide specialized services for SMEs. This is a proposed strategy where we have market segmentation, first of all, and then product and services that is directed towards SMEs, and also sales and delivery channels where we can reach to SMEs in different places, advisory services, and then number 5, organizational systems, and then number 6 is risk management. Finally, creating a joint SMEs Islamic finance platform where in partnership between central banks, Islamic banks, and other financial institutions, establishing non-banking financial services where we can join all types of different Islamic financing together, which will be directed for non-profit here banking operations. Providing legal framework for SMEs financing. There is a shortage in legal infrastructure when it comes to legal infrastructure in the region in general and around the world, especially in relation to Islamic banking and finance. And last one is establishing partnership programs between Islamic banks and universities to support Islamic finance education, which will lead to, first of all, providing higher quality university graduates as a future employees for Islamic banks, and then number 2, spreading the awareness among students about Islamic finance. And with that, we end this paper. Thank you. Well, Islamic banks in general, Islamic finance has different forms of financing. I would take the idea of safer means, what happens, for example, if you're not able to pay back the loan. Because in conventional banks in general, and Islamic banks between 2 brackets, then you will be required to pay back the money regardless of what happened in your project. Unless if you accept financing from Islamic banks in the moods of mudaraba or musharaka. So basically the difference between conventional banking and Islamic banking is that in Islamic banking they provide financing on the equity side, not on the debt side. So if you take a loan from a bank, in Islamic banking this is not loan, should be a financing or fund. They should be like a partners in your project or what you are investing in. But in the conventional side, they are lenders to you. So basically, they lend you money. And if they are a lender, then you have to retain the money regardless of what happens to your project. But again, unfortunately, what I'm saying or what I'm talking is the ideals of Islamic banks is not implemented on the real world. If you go to the Islamic bank, first of all, they will of course, sign you all documentations and checks that you are indebted to the bank of the certain amount, and then they will take you to the normal procedures like any other conventional bank. So if you lose money, then you go to the, sorry for this, between 2 brackets, you go to jail, okay? Where the real idea of Islamic banks is not to give loan to people, is if you are investing, for example, in the agricultural sector, then you have to use, for example, other forms of financing, either partnership or mudaraba or as-salam. As-salam means, you give agriculture a down payment and a promise that you will buy later the products from him, the crops. After he finishes, then you buy it and you sell it in the market. If for any reason a storm comes and then the agriculture crops is destroyed, then both will lose. The bank will lose their money and the agriculture will lose his crops. That's the idea. It's basically shared risk and shared return. Okay? Where in conventional banks or conventional banks, there is only a secured return. There is no shared risk in sense on the real world investment. Anyway, but what I'm saying is the ideal, is what we read in books, is not implemented in the real world in Islamic banks, unfortunately. That's why there is a huge call for Islamic banks to go back to the ideals where it was established initially back in the 1960s and so on. It was a social banking at the first. Social and economic development banking is not profit only. You can make profit and you can make social and economic development contribution.
So what's the next step of your paper? It's conceptual model right now.
Yes, yes.
So are you going to collect data and you're going to make a comparison?
Well, we will go to, yes, to data collection, especially starts in Bahrain, and see what is really SMEs, where they get their financing from, and what obstacles they have, and what types of financing that Islamic banks offer to SMEs and so on.
Are you testing a specific relationship with this?
At this stage, it is it's still not identified, but mostly we will gonna look at what they call it financial awareness of SMEs and how they take their financial decisions, and also borrowing and decisions, and how they deal with banks based on what.
Mainly a kind of questionnaire, right?
Yes, it will be at the initial stage. Yes. So we want to know, for example, is there a relationship between financial awareness and financial performance of SMEs? And then is there a relationship between financial awareness and what investment decisions they make, and which banks they deal with, or is it only a religiosity factor or something like that? I don't know. These are.
What my premise?
Yeah.
It's all left to the.
Unfortunately, the whole banking culture, actually, by the way, doctor, is based on, greedy and in trying to make use of, people and take their money. The whole financial crisis that happened is the same story. That's why. That's
kind of variations.
Yeah.
Well, thank
Thank
you.
you.
I
Thank
think
you.
with this, we can
Thank you very much.